Also happening right now, a meeting underway to determine if the embattled Metro Councilman Dan Johnson violated conditions that were just crafted last week for him to remain on the board.
If he did violate those conditions, he could be kicked off. Now, this meeting happening right now was supposed to happen yesterday, rescheduled, if you remember, for today to comply with the law. We have team coverage tonight. Our Shay McAlister spoke with Johnson's attorney, who isn't going down without a fight.
But we begin tonight with Robert Bradfield. He's live at Metro Hall and the meeting that got started about an hour ago. Robert?
Yeah, just looking over my shoulder to make sure that things here are as they were just a moment ago. This three-person committee went into executive session about an hour ago, but it will be interesting to see how this plays out because I've only seen two of the three committee members, Barbara Shanklin and Barbara Sexton Smith. I have not seen Councilman Rick Blackwell. He is the third person on this committee, but remember, it only takes two of the three members to vote to remove Johnson for him to be expelled. But again, they are in executive session right now. You may remember this process really started earlier this year when Councilwoman Jessica Green accused Councilman Dan Johnson of grabbing her rear end at a community event this summer. Now, in the months that followed, a charging committee was formed to try to remove Councilman Johnson. But last week, members of the Metro Council voted to keep Johnson on the council with restrictions, which included Johnson only being allowed at regularly scheduled committee or council meetings. Now, last week, Councilwoman Angela Leet filed a complaint saying that Councilman Johnson stayed at Metro Hall longer than the agreed upon order. So this committee is now reviewing Johnson's actions from last week. Also, Mayor Greg Fisher has relatively remained quiet on this issue, but he did appear on our noon news today to address this possible vote to remove Johnson.
This is a Metro Council issue. I've been clear on that. If there are violations of policy, if there is sexual harassment, any council person, including Dan Johnson in this case, if that's taken place, they need to go.
Now, again, back here at Metro Hall, the executive session still ongoing. They went into executive session just shortly after 4 o'clock today. If a decision is made about whether to remove Johnson or not, we will bring that to you as it happens. Live tonight at Metro Hall, Robert Bradfield, WHAS 11 News.
All right, Robert, keep us posted if they come out of that meeting. Well, the conditions for Dan Johnson to stay on the board, as you know, were approved last week. The conditions in light of those allegations of sexual harassment.
Our Shay McAlister talked with Dan Johnson's attorney earlier today, and he says that this was turned really into a witch hunt. And Shay, Johnson's attorney, describes this process as totally out of control.
Totally out of control. Those were his words earlier today. He says neither he nor Dan Johnson were given any notice of this meeting or the meeting that happened yesterday, so they aren't going to be there. He also said later that these two complaints are a complete joke. Thomas McAdam, Johnson's attorney, says Angela Leet filed the first complaint, accusing Johnson of violating the order just minutes after he signed it.
After the thing was over, we had a brief discussion and then we left. Mr. Johnson was waiting for his wife to bring the car around to the back of City Hall. He was waiting in the doorway, and by his estimate, he was maybe 4 minutes late leaving. Angela Leet and her stalkers with stopwatches say he was 8 minutes late leaving.
The order regulates Johnson's time at City Hall must be only 20 minutes before and after a council meeting. Thomas says Councilman Hollander filed the second complaint, accusing Johnson of shaming the council with comments he made about the proceedings.
They're out for blood. There's no question about it, and they're not going to leave him alone. They're going to torment him for the next year and try to find some way to remove him.
McAdam says Johnson has followed the rules he signed in the agreement, and he and Johnson will fight for Johnson's job. McAdam tells us that no matter what comes out of this meeting, that Johnson will keep that spot. He says if they decide to remove him, they will file an appeal.
And wasn't it part of the agreement, though, is that they wouldn't appeal?
It was, but today McAdam said that that's a constitutional right and you can't sign that away. And so Johnson signed a paper that said, no, I won't appeal. But when it comes down to it, he has that right and he will use it.
Well, and he agreed not to run again. That would be 2018, though. So if this all washes out in a different direction, well, he's in his final months no matter what.
Right, until the end of next year. But McAdam says that no matter what, he's going to stay in that seat. If they file an appeal, a judge will stay the order and he will serve the rest of his term. Either way, they believe Johnson will never truly be off the council.
Any way you look at it, the story's not over yet.
That's right.
All right, thank you so much, Shay. We appreciate it.